Hey Dad, why was Jimmy Kimmel's late night show suspended?
Welcome to Navarrette the Nation. Simply put, I'm Ruben Navarrette. This is a show where my 16-year-old daughter asks me questions about things that are in the news, and I give her the clearest, unbiased explanation I can, minus opinion. Today's topic, the First Amendment, in the context of the Jimmy Kimmel affair. Well, that's a good question. It has to do with a couple of things. First of all, let's make clear that when you're a late night host and you're paid something like $15 million a year, you're not a government employee, you don't have government protections, you're not a civil servant, you work at the pleasure of the network that employs you. So they don't need a whole lot of cause to get rid of you. Secondly, it bears mentioning that the President of the United States has centered in on late night hosts as a category, a group of people, for some time now. He doesn't like I think he must stay up late. He watches some of these shows. He doesn't like the fact that they are all sort of universally against him. And it bothers him that many of the people who host these shows are liberal and critical of him. I think it's fair to say. And then the third factor is when the government becomes involved, this is a different story than ABC firing somebody or disciplining somebody. If the government becomes involved and seems to be pressuring the network to get rid of you or suspend you or fire you or whatever, then you have a real problem. And the reason you have a problem is because of something called the First Amendment. So the First Amendment to the Constitution actually has 5 freedoms in it. It reads like this: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That's 1. Or abridging the freedom of speech. That's 2. Or of the press. That's 3. The right of the people to peacefully assemble. That's 4. And 5, to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So it tells you that the founders of the Constitution really valued those 5 freedoms and rights above everything else. And one of them, the one that's at issue here, is the right to free expression and free speech. So it means that while ABC can fire Jimmy Kimmel or suspend Jimmy Kimmel at will because he works for them, the government can't do that. The government can't pressure or force ABC to do that, because then you end up with a constitutional infraction. Jimmy Kimmel could sue ABC, could even sue the Trump administration, and ultimately what the administration will have done in that case is illegal.
So then, through all of this, Jimmy Kimmel's show getting suspended, was that something that the government wanted, or was that something that ABC wanted?
The government wanted. And I think that that's normally something we would have to speculate about or guess about because there's no evidence. But here there was some pretty clear evidence. Somebody left something behind. And the person who did that was Brendan Carr. Brendan Carr is the head of the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. They ultimately decide in this case that they don't like what Jimmy Kimmel has been saying. They particularly don't like the monologue that Jimmy Kimmel did on the Monday following Charlie Kirk's murder. They thought it was insensitive not just to Kirk's memory and his family, but also to the president. Basically what Jimmy Kimmel said was, for all the performative nature of how the president is reacting to this, and how Charlie was the president's friend and he's really heartbroken about it, that's not how the president's behaving now. So he accused the president of being insincere, inauthentic, and a phony, basically. And the White House didn't like that. And so Brendan Carr, either on his own or under instructions by the White House, he basically issued a threat and said during a radio podcast interview, which was not very smart, he said publicly, either ABC can take care of this or they're going to have a problem and we're going to have some work to do with the FCC. We may even pull their license. So he was saying this. The president was meanwhile also floating the idea of pulling ABC's license and the license of other broadcasters who were saying things that were critical of him. You put it all together and basically it looks like the FCC chairman threatened ABC and said, either you take care of this problem, meaning get rid of Jimmy Kimmel, or we'll take care of this problem by getting rid of you. And so to that end, that's where the administration made a mistake. If they had just kept quiet, if Brendan Carr hadn't gone on that podcast, if he hadn't said anything publicly, we'd only be left to speculate. But it became very clear that this was a hit on Jimmy Kimmel by the White House and the FCC.
So then what it seems like is that ABC pulled Jimmy Kimmel's show because of what Brendan Carr said.
That's correct. We don't have a causation there, a direct link, but it's an awful big coincidence that that ABC also has merger deals in the works. Understand that this isn't just a case of the broadcast networks being afraid of having their license pulled, which is a big deal. It also is the fact that this world is full of millionaires who want to become billionaires. And my industry, I've been a journalist for 37 years. I've worked for billionaires. I've worked for major media companies, Washington Post, CNN, and others. Everybody wants to consolidate and become bigger, bigger, bigger. And what ABC had is a deal that they were cooking that would require an approval from, guess what, the FCC. So Brendan Carr and the FCC ultimately are in charge of saying to ABC, okay, we give permission for you millionaires to become billionaires. That's a lot of power. That's a lot of leverage. And when people are chasing the almighty dollar, they're going to have a lot of power over those people.
Okay, thank you. I think that answers all my questions.